just the way you like it. Satisfaction guaranteed. The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news, in-depth analysis, national current affairs. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.
Welcome, Mr. C. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great, welcome.
Morning, Gbubemi.
Morning.
All right, we're live. Love music, love life. It's now 31 minutes past 7 o'clock. You are welcome to Freshly Pressed, a part of Smooth Breakfast, right here on Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life. And if you're part of our YouTube family, it means you can see the notification. We are live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. That is the handle you're searching for. You should subscribe to us while you're there so that you do not miss out on anything that we have and whenever we go live. You can be a part of the conversation for the next 30 minutes and beyond. WhatsApp line to send your messages to is 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. And you can also drop your comments on the YouTube chat. The live chat option is where you want to drop your messages in case you want to be a part of the conversation. So joining me in the studio today to analyze top news making the headlines and for us to get the in-depth understanding of this in the studio is Gbubemi Atimomo, who is on Twitter and Instagram at Orishega, spelled as Oritsega. Good morning, Gbubemi.
Good morning, Oluwaseun. Morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Lagos.
And joining me virtually is Mr. C, who is at Monsieur C. And thank you for joining us, Mr. C. Good morning.
Good morning, Oluwaseun. Good morning, Gbubemi. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, I am already hearing some lag, and we hope that the network allows us to have a seamless conversation. My name is Oluwaseun, and we're going to kickstart with the news coming from National Agency for Food, Drug and Administration and Control. On Wednesday, they mentioned and announced that 87 truckloads of banned, expired, as well as substandard medicinal products. That includes those donated from the USAID as well as UNFPA and some other things that were stored above the temperature they ought to be stored for effectiveness. Gbubemi.
Okay, so NAFDAC reported that they've been on a mission to check the large drug markets across the country. Three of them, major open drug markets in Ariara and Ezeku in Aba, Bridgehead markets in Onitsha, and Idumota drug market in Lagos. So these are sort of like the distribution points by which drugs get across the country. They're wholesale drug markets. And typically, as much as providing drugs to pharmacies, hospitals, health centers across the country, it's also been realized, that they've also been a storage for illicit drugs, expired drugs, fake drugs as well. So they've conducted a raid. NAFDAC, on these markets to be able to fish out all of these things. And through the process of this raid, they've reported that they were able to recover about 87 truckloads of expired before official assessment. This is a very worrying figure. According to the DG of NAFDAC, this is the largest haul in the history of NAFDAC ever since it's been established. And this is quite shocking. They discovered that they got a lot of drugs that were stored in violations of drug storage and distribution guidelines, diverted donated medical supplies from the USAID and UNFPA, and a lot of these things were either found expired and repackaged for sale. So we can just imagine many of these things have been passed off as original and still in good condition. They also reported that storage conditions of many of these drugs were abysmal. Largely drugs, vaccines have temperature requirements. Most of the time, they're supposed to be below room temperature. Below room temperature, below freezing point in some cases. But they found out that in many cases, these drugs were stored in facilities where there were no windows, there was no ventilation, there was no cold storage, with temperatures as high as 40 degrees, which have caused many of these drugs to be denatured. And many of these drugs are still passed off and sold as original and in good condition, which is really, really quite worrying. In addition to this, they also discovered that a lot of controlled substances were stored in these markets, controlled substances such as tafradol, which had been banned in India recently. The BBC did an expose on harmful drugs in Nigeria and India and Ghana. And as a result of that, India has recently banned that drug. Other drugs such as tramadol, which is already banned in Nigeria, flunitrazepam, which is Rofinol, nitrazepam, and diazepam. Largely, this is really, really worrying. It's not surprising, it's worrying. It's not surprising because in the history of Nigeria, we've had situations like this. I think what is worrying is the scale at which it has gone. And it's nice that NAFDAC has, launched a crackdown on this. However, what I would have thought, is that this sort of crackdowns, there should have been some sort of supervision, right from the import process, because many of these drugs are not even produced locally. So we need to start asking questions. How did these drugs even get into the country? Were they imported through legal channels? Were they smuggled in? Where are the hitch points by which these drugs got into the market? And even within those markets, ideally there should be NAFDAC, NAFDAC operatives, that regularly check these things, spot checks and things like that, to ensure that the drugs being packaged, being sold, abide by the established regulations and guidelines of the agency. Have there been lapses there? Is it that the agency is understaffed such that they've not been able to cover all of these markets appropriately to provide the oversight that they should? Have they been overwhelmed? Have agents been compromised such that these things have been permitted to go on and on? These are a lot of questions that we need to find out. And then when we think about the impact of this on the nation, it's worrying because these three large markets serve, like I said originally, serve the entire nation. They serve as the hub for the wholesale distribution of these drugs across the nation. So we have incidents of people are probably buying drugs that are not working. People are buying drugs that are harmful to their health and they're not even sure what is causing the health conditions that they have now developed as a result of the fact that they've used medication that they thought would address the initial problems that they had. The quality of healthcare, it's already compromised as it is. The healthcare, it's worrying enough to probably even declare a state of emergency on this. So this is a nice initiative. But a lot of all these questions that I've asked also need to be addressed. And then also working with agents like customs, the police, how do we ensure going forward that we don't hear things like this anymore, at least that they're severely reduced, because this is very, very important. We also need to realize in a situation where a lot of our drugs are imported, so we're still ramping up local capacity with regards to the production of drugs, but there's still a lot of drugs that are imported. So we're somewhat dependent on these things. And then we also need to also consider that some of these items were donations by agencies, that they're supposed to have been handed out freely at no expense to people, but they've been repackaged, repurposed, and sold to people for profit. Now, in all of these things, they said they've caught about 40 people across all of these markets who are facing prosecution. I think it's very important that these people are named so that we know them. They most likely will not be small fry. We need to stop that culture of saying that we have apprehended people, but we don't mention their names. We need to mention their names, and they need to face the strictest indictments and punishments under the law, and to be set as an example for other people. In line with this as well, the DG has also raised concerns about fears for her life. Again, this is not surprising because you remember that as far back as when Dora Akunyili was DG of NAFDAC, attempts were made on her life. She was shot at once while in her car, and luckily the bullets passed through her head tie, I think, but she wasn't hit. But that I think was the introduction to the harm that follows this role. It just goes to show that there are a lot of vested interests along this chain who are interested in making sure that their business continues to go on as it is, and this cannot be allowed. She has cited the fact that she needs to have security with her 24/7 around the clock, wherever she is across the country. She's also cited that her agents as well have faced death threats. In fact, one of them, a child's child was kidnapped. Luckily, the child escaped. So these are also signs just to show how important this is to the nation. Because if there are people who are interested in continuing to perpetrate, their wrongdoing across the healthcare medicine chain, it just shows that they will go to no extent to keep their business viable. So, security for the life, security for the agents is paramount. As much as possible, I believe that government should and will be addressing this as much as possible to make sure that we can sanitize that aspect of our society.
Thank you very much. And amidst all of this, she renews her call for the death penalty for those who are caught and are guilty of this. And for this one, I would like to ask for your thoughts. I'll start with you, Gbubemi, come to you, Mr. C. What's your take on that? The call for the death penalty of those who have been caught and are guilty of this.
Well, as a country, I don't think Mr. C will shed more light. I don't think if the death penalty exists for any laws, I'm not sure that those have been implemented in a while. A lot of governors tend to shy away from that. But if that is what it will take to serve as a deterrent, then maybe that's what should happen. But my concern is that, it's not a situation of where, through the case of establishing guilt, some people fly under the radar and then some people are scapegoated. This has to be something that is, if ever passes through law, it has to be something that is implemented across board.
Mr. C, what's your take?
Okay, Gbubemi is correct. I cannot really recall any recent incidents in which anyone who has been sentenced to death has actually been executed. What we will find is that we have a number of inmates who are on death row across our correctional centers. But yes, if that is what it will take for people to get a message that you cannot seek to make a profit illegally or legally through threatening, jeopardizing another human being's health, I'm all for it.
Okay, she calls them merchants of death. Well, you can join the conversation by sending your messages to WhatsApp 0809-444-0981. Again, 0809-444-0981. We'll take some quick messages before we get to the story about Dangote Refinery slashing petrol price again for the second time in February. And on WhatsApp, I have Mr. Ajayi Oloniwa from Magudu Jerry Sherry saying, good morning, Oluwaseun. The renewed war against fake and expired drugs by NAFDAC is quite commendable, as the damage being done to the health of unsuspecting consumers is better imagined. God help us. Tracy from Ojodu says, good morning. The women in power doing good jobs are always a target, always. The Presidency is a new film in our cinemas that talk badly about this same problem. Women do a lot for the society and should be respected. I believe men are working as well, but I do get your point. Rexy from Surulere says, we should also have harsh words for the unscrupulous killers calling themselves businessmen that perpetrate these crimes in Ariara, Onitsha, and Idumota markets. And Daniel from Festac says, hello, diazepam and tramadol are not banned. They are only meant to be sold with prescription from a doctor. The BBC documentary was about the fact that the drug was not manufactured according to Indian standards and was sold as recreational drugs. We need to do the right thing. Okay. Sorry, for now, it's just messages, no calls. Thank you. The BBC documentary was about the fact that the drug was not manufactured according to Indian standards and was sold as recreational drugs. We need to do the right thing. Even malaria drugs require prescription and are abused by Nigerians. Should that be banned too? There's too much lawlessness and anyhowness in Nigeria. I support the death penalty for it, but they should also extend it to corruption, etc. Those crimes kill even more Nigerians. Sunday from Surulere says, fake and expired drugs have become the new pandemic. You go for treatment and return home with new problems. This is a battle that must not be taken lightly. The lives of millions of Nigerians are at stake. I support the death penalty for this merchant of death. And Oluwaseun says kidnapping and terrorism have death penalty in many states in Nigeria. How many people have been executed? How has the death penalty stopped those crimes? All right, now let's go to the story about the announcement that was made yesterday. For the second time in February, Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reduced the exit full price of premium motor spirit, cutting it down from 890 naira to 825 naira per liter. Mr. C.
Okay, very quickly, there isn't a lot of news to go with. 3 days ago, the Dangote was briefing the delegation that came in Zambia, revealed that he had over 500 million liters of petrol in his tank reservoirs, his refinery location, and he had over 600 billion worth of product. Now, it makes perfect economic sense that if you have that large amount of product sitting down, you reduce the prices so that you can get the product sold off easily and quicker, so that when you then produce again, you have space to store it in. So this is just pure economic sense from Mr. Dangote. Even though Dangote Refinery Group wants to suggest it's ahead of the forthcoming Ramadan and seasons, that's neither here nor there. He's a businessman. He's not a philanthropist per se. That's not his primary occupation. He needs to get rid of his product so that he can have fresh product that will be made. That's it.
All right, so Mr. C, please, can we try something? Can you turn off your video and let's see if the audio will be better? I think we're having some interferences.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it is better, but sometimes it just goes off and on. All right, so it looks like Tony from M Beach agrees with you, and he says Dangote is not Father Christmas or Father Ramadan to be coming up with such stories each time. We all know the Naira gained strength lately due to $8 billion injection. He should tell us the truth, and I wish NNPC comes up to bring in real competition and end these kinds of stories. All right, then we move on to the next story, and this is about the chief of army staff being disappointed at the feeding allowance of the Nigerian army, and as a result, he wants to increase, or is increasing, for an upward review of their feeding allowance from 1,005 naira to 3,000 naira. Mr. C.
Okay, so very quickly again, this is truly ridiculous. It's truly shameful that men and women who've laid down their lives to guarantee our collective safety are being paid ridiculous amounts. Now, I don't know when 1,500 naira was approved. I don't know what year, but it's extremely ridiculous that in 2025, we're moving to 3,000 naira. Sure, let's do the math. Let's do some simple, quick arithmetic. 1.5 a day by 30 days, that's 45,000 naira. For the love of everything good under the sun, how is a human being, forget anyone in the army, how do you survive on 45,000 naira food every month? How was that supposed to happen? Then you then expect someone who's paid such amounts to then carry weapons and actively defend Nigerians whilst hungry. And it's not like the money is paid regularly. For some periods, it will be owed for stretches of months. So again, I'm not sure where we're headed with all of this. So in the defense budget for 2025, what exactly were they planning to do? What's the plan? Because if you're feeding someone with 3,000 naira a day and you truly believe in your soul that that person will defend you with all of his might on 3,000 naira, I can only wish you the very best in life.
Asking about your audio again, Mr. C. Just in case you can hear me, I cannot hear you.
Okay, so you didn't hear anything?
Try this again. Turn off your audio. Towards the.
I'm turning it off. Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello?
It says, Dangote reduced price now. to make big gains later. God knows his plans. How did the cement price get to 10,000 naira from 3,000? Well, enjoy the low pump price while you may. Good morning, Oluwaseun, and the analysis. Mr. C, are you back? Can you hear me? Hello, Mr. C. Yep, downside of technology. All right, Sunday from Surulere here says, I hope the increase in feeding allowance will boost the morale of the army personnel. Maybe hunger is the reason for the inefficiencies we have seen. I support the chief of army staff. Give them food, I beg. Sunday, 3,000 naira per day. That is. Are you back, Mr. C?
Yes, I am. Is it better now?
Yes, it is. All right.
Okay, so
Can you
okay,
repeat the last thing you said?
Okay, so let me quickly take that story. So feeding allowance for soldiers has moved from 1,500 naira to 3,000 naira a day. Let's do some simple arithmetic. That's about 5,000 naira a month. How is any Nigerian comfortable knowing that the soldiers who are paid to defend us and protect from all sorts of threats and aggression survive on 45,000 naira food every month? So let's be realistic. 3,000 naira food every day will not satisfactorily feed a 5-year-old. And you are giving this to grown adults. Does it make sense? This is completely unacceptable. I don't know what the plan is. And if this is part of the plan to defeat all various non-state terrorist actors, I can only wish Nigerians the very best.
Let me take it further, Mr. C. If you were to suggest or propose an acceptable budget or allowance in terms of feeding for these men, what would you suggest?
So rather do that, why don't you get vendors who will submit, and then you have sort of general mess or canteen where they can go and eat? Why are you giving them money individually? Are they supposed to leave their duty post and then go hunting or scavenging for food? I really don't understand what the plan here is. And it's truly disheartening, it's truly traumatic. But 3,000 naira a day makes no sense, especially to those who are involved in security operations. We have to tell the truth.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so I agree completely with Mr. C. You know, we've talked about how all the problems that the military has been trying to address across the nation, fighting with insurgents and bandits and all of that. And it's worrying to think that they've been taking a daily ration of 1,500 every day. It's abysmal. Even at 3,000, as Mr. C had said, it's really poor. 3,000 would probably even buy just at the very worst 1 meal or a meal and a half. You know, and these are men who are actively in physical duty. So it's not just physical duty, but there's also the mental exertion as well, you know, and the emotional toll on the health. You know, so I would think, you know, at this point in time that the chief of army staff needs to go back and ask his people to do some proper research to find out what proper amount it would be to earmark for this, and to you know, make the funds available. You know, the budget is there. You know, if the budget cannot take what the new thing, the new amount is, you know, there's always a room for a budget deficit. You know, so these are things that need to be argued for. At this point in time, the president even himself has said that they've prioritized security. You know, so we shouldn't think about prioritizing security in terms of just providing the ammunition and the weapons alone, but also in terms of the welfare of the soldiers who are at the war front.
Thank you. Still about the men in uniform, a viral video of an angry soldier was on socials. It went on for 8 minutes, 14 seconds, and he was ranting about many things, including the Nigerian military abandoning injured soldiers in hospitals across the country and saying that some of them have, if not all of them, had to foot the bills personally. Mr. C.
Okay, so very quickly, this is another recurring episode in the unending season of seeming mistreatment of soldiers by army authorities. We've been regaled with videos in the past where we've seen individuals, apparently who are serving soldiers, complain of the lack of welfare. Now, if this story is actually correct, and true in all factual realms, then this is really traumatic. A soldier has signed up to serve his fatherland. In the course of serving his fatherland, he has sustained injuries, which come with the job. He's then told he must pay for his own treatment. Let it make sense. What then is the point? And then when you now want to go and recruit fresh soldiers and they fail to turn up, when you are paying to Nigerians to join the army, the navy, the air force, and they refuse to turn up or sign up, you then act surprised. These are the things that we need to address. And no, it's no secret that we continue to struggle with non-state terrorists. If you cannot even take care of those who are wounded in battle, what message are you sending to the rest who have not yet been injured? That is why last year we were regaled with tales, incidents where a large number of soldiers voluntarily opted to leave the Nigerian army, and in some cases they were stopped from doing it. You can't force a man to fight if you're not going to look after the man. So again, the army authorities, you need to look at your welfare plans. You need to look at post-retirement in terms of what they're retiring to. You need to look at insurance. You need to look at life insurance, health insurance. You need to look at where they even live, because that is another issue. So I don't think from the welfare perspective, the Nigerian army has gotten it. There's still time for them to get it right. And it's good all these stories are coming now so that they have some sort of idea of the full extent of the work they need to do.
Thank you. Even a robot requires maintenance, talk less of a human with flesh, blood, and soul. And we hope that these things are addressed. Now, the anger in all of this is that the DHQ, the Defense Headquarters, is yet to alter anything. And according to the time of filing the reports, the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tuku Gusau, as well as the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Marcus Kangie, neither responded to questions sent to them nor answered the calls made to them. So hopefully they are going to say something about this, and beyond saying something about it, something is actually done about it. We're going to take some messages as we wrap things up for this morning on Freshly Pressed. Joseph Menye from Silver Estates, Ejigbo, Lagos says, good morning, Freshly Pressed. My ever-vibrant presenter, Radio Diva, Oluwaseun, analyst, Mr. C, and Gbubemi. It's actually Gbubemi, not Dubemi, but thank you, Joseph. And he says, do you remember before the subsidy removal, there was a propaganda that PMS is far expensive across the border, but ever since Dangote Refinery began production, has it become cheaper in other countries because we don't hear smuggling again? Also, NNPC, DPR, and Dangote should be transparent and sincerely tell Nigerians the exact price of PMS, because why is importations cheaper than local content? Also, why is the NAFDAC DG going about without surplus security against drug lords, but unnecessary convoy are attached to politicians? She actually mentioned that she has 2 policemen attached to her now, and the sad part is that she's gradually losing her life, that she almost cannot go anywhere without those security details. Moving on, Michael says, our government needs to sort out priorities. Changing the anthem was swift. Can we do same for penalties of counterfeit drugs baron? Let them pay for selling poison to millions. Tony from Surulere says, good morning, crew. The money given to the military is not given to the soldiers as cash. They only use it to prepare food for them in the barrack for those on duty, not everybody. Oluwaseun says, increase to 3K, laugh won't kill me. And they wonder why morale is low and why some support the terrorists. So what was it before? 1,500. How does this even make sense? Their commanding officers live large and drive in large convoys of SUVs when they move around. A great thing, they have demoralized them to the point they won't carry out a coup d'etat, though that also means they can't do their jobs of protecting the territorial integrity of Nigeria. Rexy from Surulere says, it's always easy to sit in a studio and pontificate. Can you imagine Mr. C's solution? Running government canteens all over the country. You can bet he will come back here and cry about corruption if his solution is implemented. I'm sure Mr. C has something to say to that, but we'll come to you. And Gilbert Musa from Festac says, on the suggestion of death penalty for persons involved in the manufacture of fake medications, I'll suggest we sentence such persons to life imprisonment and work towards eliminating the process that facilitate the structure of the organized crime. And Tony from Marine Beach says, what we were probably not told is that the 3,000 is the minimum feeding allowance. Those in the upper cadre may be getting more. And that's, to me, a fraud. Give them good food and stop the fraud, please. So, final word, Mr. C.
Okay, so I'm going to put it this way, right? We have all sorts of listeners. My job is to explain it to the best of my ability. I cannot help you understand what I've explained. And I wish Nigerians, the rest, an end to a profitable and rewarding week. And let's just go out and make this money and get ready to enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, Gbubemi.
Yeah, everyone have a great rest of the week as we prepare for the weekend.
Thank you. You can find Gbubemi on socials at Oluwaseun, that's OIITSEGA. And you can find Mr. C at Monsieur C, that's MONSIEURCEE.
We return on Grapevine, that's 8:15, and let's talk about the entertainment stories making the headlines. You're listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. My name is Oluwaseun Olusegun.
The headlines, the stories.
Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, yeah, let me